Hi there. I wanted to talk a little bit about some sellers that I helped in Merced recently. I had talked to them about 6 months prior. Actually, I had only talked to the wife, and she was the only one on title. But I thought I would go back by their house and say hello, check in, see if they were still considering selling. These people were, we might call, hoarders. And the house was not in very great condition. A lot of deferred maintenance and rotting wood and things like that. So I asked the husband, who was outside when I drove by, how's it going? My name is Monica. I had spoke to your wife, a few months ago about selling, and was wondering where you guys were with that and if you had been considering selling again. He told me, actually, we went into contract last night on selling our house. I told him, wow, that's great. Congratulations. Do you mind if I ask or what price you went in? And he said, well, we're getting $240,000 and we're going to pay off our solar with that too. So really it's about $220. I told him, wow. He said, wow, what? Is that good? Is it bad? When I had spoke to the wife 6 months ago, I had told her then that her value was at $280,000. So it was very surprising to me that they had taken an offer for so low. He told me that they had called somebody on TV that gives you an all-cash offer in any condition and no realtor fees and no any additional fees. You don't have to fix anything up. You can leave your stuff here and we'll clean it out for you. All of that. So he asked me, wow, what do you mean by wow? Is it good or is it bad? Well, I told him I think you could have done better. And I had done homework before I went there and looked at the values in the area. Of course, everything that had sold was in much better condition. So I knew the current value and I knew the fixed up value. I told him, as I said, I think you could have done better. He said, well, how much better? I said, well, I think that the current value is about $295. And he says, wow, do you have anybody for that? I said, oh, well, I have some investors that I could call. He says, call them now. So I got on my phone, I called 2 investors right then. One of them came over that night and looked at the property. He said, I'm not sure about the area. I've got a few projects going on. I'm not really that interested. So he passed. And we had somebody else come the next day. I met them there. We looked at the property and they decided, yes, we'll make an offer on it. Both of these people were flippers, so they know what they're getting into when they look at a home like this. Anyhow, that day I wrote up an offer. Actually, we talked about it in the driveway with the seller and the buyer and had decided on a price of $297,000. And the buyer would pay for the solar. So we essentially netted, we went from $222 that the buyer was going to net all the way to about $280,000. That the buyer would net. So this is how a realtor can help you. When you get the postcards in the mail that say no realtors, no realtor fees, just remember, there may be no realtor fees, but that guy wants to get your house for as little as possible. And they usually do. So I can tell you that seller hugged me crying when I left the house that day. Of course, that's part 1. There is a part 2 to this story. So we'll do that later. Thanks. Bye.